What if I told you that as you watch this, two strangers from the deep dark are racing toward our neighborhood, not by accident, but by appointment? One is small enough to be called a probe, the other large enough to rearrange continents. Their paths are not random. Their arrivals are timed. And everything scientists thought they understood about comets, probes, and cosmic chance is about to be thrown out the window. If you want the truth, like the video now and stay to the end, because you are not going to believe what we discovered. September 8th, 2025. Dr. Amina Kaur was sipping coffee in the control room of the Helios array, expecting another quiet shift of sunspot data and routine telemetry. The feed suddenly flooded with high-frequency noise, then collapsed into a single coherent spike. The spectral signature did not match any known solar interaction. It read like a machine breathing, pulsing in narrowband bursts that repeated every 4.2 hours. She replayed the logs 3 times before she swallowed, and typed the words every scientist fears to type. Check for interference. There was none. 2 nights later, on September 11th, a backyard astronomer outside of Cape Town named Thomas van der Merwe uploaded a photo that made the global community pause. What looked like a comet at first glance had a metallic sheen, a tail threaded in colors that shifted in perfectly timed intervals, and a silhouette that showed precise geometric facets. Professionals called it transient object, XJ7. The farmers who saw it called it something older, something like a wandering city of light. Official channels shrugged. Private channels did not. By September 13th, radio observatories in Chile and Japan had picked up structured transmissions from XJ7. The pulses encoded prime number sequences and a nested fractal pattern that repeated at intervals impossible for any known natural process. The material readings were stranger still. Its outer crust recorded a lattice of alloys with isotopic ratios that implied fabrication, not formation. This was not a wayward rock. This was an engineered thing, and it was sending out a heartbeat. Then, like a scene cut from a cosmic screenplay, an object 3 times as large made itself known. C/2025 Q1, cataloged quietly by a survey telescope in Utah, revealed itself as more than a comet. It was a slow-moving juggernaut, wrapped in a halo so bright it bent the local plasma. Telescopes that had been trained on it suddenly showed surfaces that shifted like liquid metal, panels rearranging in patterns that suggested intent. Where XJ7 sent pulses, C/2025 Q1 answered in torrents of charged particles shaped into what looked like glyphs when mapped across radio frequencies. They were not speaking to us. They were speaking to one another. Pause and consider the odds. 2 interstellar visitors, apparently unrelated, both entering the same sector of space within weeks of each other, both showing unmistakable signatures of workmanship. The math alone is staggering. In a stellar neighborhood measured in light years, what are the chances of this kind of rendezvous unless it was planned, or unless someone or something wanted them to meet here and now? Here is where history knots itself with mystery. C/2025. Q1 follows a long cycle. Ancient ice core samples matched to tree ring anomalies point to a return every 23,640 years. That puts its last visit around the end of the Younger Dryas, an era when human societies across the planet changed faster than natural cultural evolution would explain. Monumental architecture, sudden astronomical knowledge, bursts of metallurgy, and trade networks appearing like lightning. Coincidence, the academics will say. But the alignment is there, etched in stone and in genes, waiting for someone curious enough to see it. Science teams have divided into 3 uneasy camps. Camp 1 calls it caretaking. In this view, XJ7 is a scout, a small data collector. C/2025 Q1 is a service vessel returning to update, repair, and extract information from relic sensors hidden long ago in the solar system. Imagine automated relay stations buried in the Trojan asteroids, dormant observatories in lunar basins, nanoscopic tapestries of data embedded in the rims of icy moons. Every 23,000 years, the fleet wakes up, harvests data, and leaves a breadcrumb of new mathematics and technology. That would explain sudden leaps in ancient engineering. But it also raises a terrifying question. Who authorized the caretakers, and why have they never once failed in a cycle where everything else changes? Camp 2 calls it escalation. If XJ7 is a probe that has intercepted our electromagnetic footprint, then the arrival timings perfectly match the outbound wavefront of human broadcast energy. Television, radar, deep space messages, the collective noise of our species has been expanding for a century. Something listened, decoded, and responded. The probes arrive not to greet, but to inspect. Each visitor shows a higher level of capability than the last. Are we witnessing a chain of assessments, from curiosity to appraisal to deployment, like instruments measuring an infant to decide if it should be enrolled in a program or quarantined? Camp 3 is darker. It calls this an intervention. In this scenario, XJ7 was never a harmless observer. It malfunctioned, or it acted on information that changed its mission profile. C/2025 Q1 then arrived, not to help, but to correct a deviation. The idea is brutal in its logic. If an embedded system has been influencing cultural trajectories for millennia, the system's overseers might be designed to reset the timeline when contamination exceeds thresholds. That sounds mythic, but look at the evidence in the record. Flood narratives across continents, synchronized architectural leaps, sudden losses of entire civilizations preserved as buried cities and burned strata. What if those narratives are not stories but maintenance logs, tragic side effects of cosmic housekeeping gone wrong? What do we actually see when we point our instruments at these objects? XJ7 shows surfaces with machining marks at micrometer scales, repeating patterns that match none of our manufacturing techniques, yet look undeniably manufactured. Its energy output is small, but refined, an onboard reactor cycling in microbursts that suggest active navigation. C/2025 Q1 emits a magnetohydrodynamic sheath, which warps the solar wind. Observations show an adaptive boundary, a shield that breathes, thickening when bombarded by cosmic rays and thinning when approaching our inner system. Embedded within that shield are discrete nodes that blink with timing signatures, identical to pulses from XJ7. The pieces fit unnerving well. Then there is the communication conundrum. XJ7 transmits in languages of mathematics and geometry, but when translated, the sequences map to algorithms that generate fractal blueprints and resonance patterns. C/2025 Q1 responds not with words but with structural rearrangements, with energy emissions that alter localized space plasma. It is as if one is asking a question in code and the other rewrites the environment to answer. Again, they are not addressing humanity. They are executing a protocol older than recorded memory. Now imagine the political implications. Space agencies have issued calm statements while their secure channels are full of urgent memos. Military grids have shifted to monitoring modes. International science coalitions have gone silent in public, and in private, they are debating the impossible. Do you mobilize telescopes worldwide, risking panic? Do you hide the data and hope for a quiet resolution? Or do you attempt to engage, to broadcast a message, and see if the visitors interact with the sender or ignore the noise? So far, the official record is a tapestry of ambiguity and omission. Where clarity is needed, we have received measured caution. Where transparency should be mandatory, we are given silence. The timeline is unforgiving. On October 10th, 2025, XJ7 will skim past the inner heliosphere. On October 22nd, C/2025 Q1 will reach perihelion inside the orbit of Mars. For a 2-week window, both objects will glide into conjunction with the Sun, their signals folded behind the corona. That is the moment when ground-based sensors will lose direct sight, and when any interaction between them will be invisible to our instruments. Whatever rituals, repairs, or conflicts occur in that period will be hidden from our eyes. When they emerge on the far side of the Sun, we will see the result, not the process. If the caretaking theory holds true, we might suddenly find new transmissions directed at Earth, information beacons lighting up long-dormant relay stations, encrypted data caches unlocking with mathematical keys embedded in ancient monuments. Humanity could witness a leap forward, a cascade of knowledge that lifts technology decades in a single season. If the escalation theory is correct, we may receive a message, a calibrated assessment of our species, perhaps a test we do not realize we are passing or failing. If the intervention theory is real, then emergence could show us a world slightly diminished, with nodes of cosmic infrastructure altered or removed, histories quietly rewritten by absence. Which outcome do you prefer to believe? The safe option is to treat this as a spectacle, beautiful and alarming, and to wait for scientists to provide an explanation. The honest option is to accept that we are on the edge of a historical seam, where myth, archaeology, physics, and engineering come together and demand a new narrative. Our textbooks will be rewritten, our origin stories retold, and our place in the cosmos re-examined. So here is the one question that will keep you awake. If something out there has been returning to our system for tens of thousands of years on a schedule, leaving behind traces in stones and myths, then at what point did the invisible caretakers decide to shift? From guidance to correction? And if they think we are off course, will they simply rearrange our future without asking permission? If you want to track this as it unfolds, subscribe and enable notifications. Over the coming weeks, I will break down every data release, every anomalous image, and every official statement. And I will ask the questions most newsrooms are too cautious to ask. Because whatever happens behind the sun in late October 2025 will echo through human history. It could be the dawn of a bridge to the stars, or the closing of a chapter we never knew we were part of. The universe is sending signals. The only choice left to us is whether to listen closely and to prepare for an answer that may change everything.